All right, good morning, everybody, or good morning to those, good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast. Welcome again to the next in the series of TDevConf speaker interviews. This morning we have with us Mr. Sam Basu. Sam, how are you, sir?
I'm hanging in there. Good.
Okay. Well, yeah, I did not realize how much work these interviews were going to be when I came up with the idea, but I'm having a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Before we get started this morning, I want to do a quick commercial announcement for TDevConf. We are sponsored, so you can visit our sponsors at tdevconf.com/sponsors.html, and here is that page right here. So we are right now, what we have is Microsoft, JetBrains, and O'Reilly. We've got a couple more that I don't have logos for yet, but will be up there soon. And these companies are either donating services that are being used to make the conference awesome. They're donating swag for the attendees, prizes to give away at the end, and some are making charity donations on behalf of the conference. We've raised so far about $400 for Basu code. So, excuse me, Sam. Let's see here. So I've been asking everybody to start off with the exact same question. What is the 60 to 90-second elevator pitch about yourself?
Oh boy. I do nothing, and so far people have not noticed, so I'm going to stick to it.
Now you were doing nothing earlier. I saw you were conducting an interview earlier. I actually had Sarah on here earlier this week. That's why I was making all the comments about I've heard all this before. But
yeah. You know, I mean, this is a particularly difficult year. We are missing out, hanging out at conferences or user groups. So this is at least a way for us to connect and chat. So what I do, I'm an old man. I am an old man. I've been doing this for the last 2 decades almost. So yeah, always been in technology. I do have formal degrees, although they weren't as useful as you think they are. But yeah, I've been working in a variety of industries and verticals, and I've always been part of the developer communities wherever I lived, or even like regional or national levels. I live in Erie, Pennsylvania, right up by Lake Erie. We have 5 Great Lakes, right? Up north, there's a little town called Erie. It's called the Mistake on the Lake, but that's where I live, and it's fine. And I work from home. I am a developer advocate for Progress Software. I travel a lot, but not this year, clearly. So I have a long history with .NET, mostly just enough JavaScript to be dangerous. And I focus mostly on modern platforms and tools for mobile and desktop and web. So that's what I do, and I live and breathe the internet. I try streaming as much as I can, as time permits, and yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and actually, in your Twitch channel, you stream on Code It Live. Like I said, you were on earlier this morning with Sarah, and that's a 5-day-a-week thing, isn't it?
It is. It is a team account, and you're going to see us stream multiple times each day because it's like 4 of us who do that. So you're going to see not just .NET from me or Ed Sherbanu, who's my fellow partner in crime. We do .NET, but then we also do JavaScript and UI and interviews and podcasts. So it's a busy channel.
And Ed is also a speaker at TDevConf. He's going to be talking about, guess what? Laser.
Surprise.
You mentioned something earlier that it's a theme that's come up several times, and especially talked about it last night with Chad Green. You're talking about, you say you do have degrees, but they're not as useful as you expected, and that's something that's come up as several times, because my degree is in music. I was a composer, and talk about a degree that unless you're going to go get a DMA and become a professor in music composition, talk about a degree that's useless. So it talked about that you don't really have to have a computer science degree or really even a degree to be in this industry.
Yeah, and I think that's a good thing. But I mean, I would not like completely discount formal education, because I think what it does is, like, languages and technologies and platforms, they come and go. Like we can't get married to any one of them, as long as like your education or your mental setup towards how you learn teaches you how to think logically. Like, is your head screwed on right? Can you think about problems without actually writing code? And that's the education that you're looking for. And I mean, absolutely, computer science does set you up. I mean, there's a lot of things we learn that are not maybe relevant once you come out and work in the industry. But definitely, I do not repent being in school for my bachelor's, for my master's. The things we learned were things I never actually ended up using, but that's fine. It got me the basics, which again, I mean, if you are driven enough, it all comes down to motivation. Like, if you want to make life better for yourself, if you want to get the next best thing for yourself in tech, you will learn, and there's plenty of resources for someone to learn, but it's just like, how motivated are you to do that? And if you go through school, then you do have some of the fundamental building blocks in place, which again, I mean, we tend to forget some of the core principles of computer science, but it's not hard to pick up newer languages or new technologies if you have your foundations right.
And you hit on a kind of a point several times in different ways, is that it's about problem solving and how to think about things. And yes, that's something that you can definitely learn, but you have to learn by doing. And while an education can set you up for that, it's not something that you're necessarily going to, just because you have a degree means that you're an expert problem solver. So I think that's so right. So that's where school and education do come in. But at the same time, there are many places other than computer science where you can learn how to solve problems. So
absolutely. And then you and so many others are like classic examples of how you are educated in something else, but you bring that analytical thinking, that logical thinking to computer science and to technology, and you thrive.
It's definitely something that I think there's a place for almost anybody who wants to be in it. Yeah. So you said you're an old man, so I'm going to ask you to prove it. What was your first computer?
Okay, I'm actually, well, computer-wise, I'm not actually that old. Like a lot of people talk about the Commodore. My first computer was in '96. So that was like when, like the earliest, what was before like Windows 95? I forget.
Windows 3.1.
Yeah, so that was my first, and it was like a super clunky computer, but they did have a mouse and a keyboard, so I didn't start with like punch cards, but yeah, just the early days, and then I think Windows 95 rolled along, so that's where I started. Yeah.
You are not old. My first computer was a TI-9 44A.
I hear you.
Yeah, TI-99 4A. I don't know if I said that correctly the first time. Yeah. And it did not have a mouse. It had a tape cassette. Actually, I don't even know if it had a tape cassette at first. We may have gotten the tape cassette later. So tools these days, what do you, obviously you're a big fan of the Progress Telerik /Telerik suite, but as far as text editors, code editors, what are you liking these days?
Okay, so if I'm doing mobile stuff, I do like Visual Studio because it just like the hookups are easy. So it knows how to find the simulators or emulators, find your devices. That stuff is easy, but it does come with quite a bit of baggage. Like Visual Studio is still a big product, but it's a walled garden. Once you're in, you're good. I am a big fan of Visual Studio Code. It's lightweight, works everywhere. I still do use Sublime once in a while. But no, otherwise it's pretty simple, like Visual Studio Code or VS for Mac. I'm on a Mac pretty much, unless I'm doing Windows-based desktop stuff, then I'm in Windows using Visual Studio.
Oh yeah, how you liking that 16-inch MacBook Pro?
Oh, it's beautiful. It is beautiful.
It is.
Yeah, I mean, it looks and feels very much similar. So some of the key differences are, like, I had a 2017, 2016 MacBook for like the last 4.5 years. The whole like butterfly keyboard thing never really took off. It was just too shallow. There wasn't enough travel as you typed. So this one is kind of bringing back the days of where things were really good, and they have really improved the thermal dynamics of it, because like it has a very modern processor, but all of that's going to fall flat because Apple wants to make things thinner and thinner, and if your heat sinks are not able to accommodate like elevated CPU clocks cycles for long periods of time, you're going to see thermal throttling, right? And that's not something we want to be paying this much of money for. So I like it. I like it so far. It's a good. I mean, MacBooks are good, solid workhorses. Except like especially like with streaming and everything else that we do, you start seeing the edges where it just falls off quickly. So I'm happy so far.
Yeah, I stream from a PC, and that's what I use for video editing. But when I start to develop things, I pull out that Mac, and Macs I've always said that Apple's hardware has been superior. It has been, and Mac OS, it's getting better. It's tolerable now. But the nice thing is, and the thing is, some people thought I was nuts getting one, especially getting one. I went ahead and got the 64 gigs of RAM and stuff, and they thought I was nuts getting one now. And because of Apple Silicon, I'm like, I want one with Intel because Parallels or actually I use VMware Fusion, but I want to get an Intel.
Yes, me too. I mean, I'm all for Apple's Silicon. I mean, they do a fantastic job with iPads and iPhones, but I think they're going to start out with some of the basic stuff and then get to the high performance things. And if you're concerned about compatibility, I think Intel is the broadest you can get. So
yeah, I think Apple Silicon, I think eventually it'll be a great thing, but making that big of a switch, because if I'm not mistaken, the first Intel Macs that they made had some kind of compatibility problem. So it's going to take 2 years to make the transition anyway.
Yeah, I mean, they said 2 years anyway. So I think the first is going to be like a 13-inch MacBook Pro. So give yourself some time if that's the one you want to get. So eventually you'll start seeing it all across.
Yeah, I heard it's going to start at like $899, so it's going to be a super low price. So yeah. Well, let's go ahead and talk about your TDevConf talk. You sort of alluded to something when you're saying that you have to use Visual Studio for Xamarin right now. That's not always going to be the case in the long term. So surfing in Maui, why don't you tell us what that's all about?
Well, I love Maui. We went on a honeymoon to Maui. I'm all about actually surfing in Maui. I love Hawaii. I think Microsoft has found a nice niche, catchy name, and I think they're missing out a few URLs that they could have bought. But at least they're promising they're working with the community to do things right. So, okay, so the whole Maui thing kind of we have to explain where things are today before we talk about tomorrow. So this is Xamarin. This is Xamarin Forms we're talking about. So cross-platform mobile dev with .NET. You do have actually quite a few options, which is nice. There's Uno platform. There's other things you can do within UWP. But Xamarin iOS and Xamarin Android have always been around, except folks complain about the maturity of the tooling, that it's not really .NET that you're doing this side thing. So that's what they're trying to address. They're trying to bring Xamarin Android and Xamarin iOS, which is essentially you write C#, that's your business logic, and then you write heads like iOS, Android, or whatever else, other Xamarin Mac if you want to do. Those are UI heads that you're writing by yourself. And you've always been able to do that. Now it's just going to be .NET for iOS, .NET for Android. So hopefully you have more confidence in the tooling going forward. Xamarin Forms is the abstraction. And I know you do quite a bit of Xamarin Forms as well. We have been doing this for the last 4 or 5 years. Things were really rough with Xamarin Forms. Things were really expensive. But since they took over in 2016 with the acquisition, things are open source. The tooling has improved quite a bit. There are still rough edges. The whole dev loop of how efficient developers are, that's a constant battle to improve. So Maui is kind of the evolution of Xamarin Forms from where it stands today. So in terms of platform support, it's not going to be anything surprising. You will still have iOS, Android, Windows, and Mac. But under the covers, a few things are changing. They are reusing what's called the renderers for every abstraction that we write. Like you're writing a visual tree that's in XAML or C#, but then that's not the same UI stack that iOS or Android use. So there is a piece of code for each platform that takes your abstraction and renders corresponding native UI. So they're opening up that renderer to be used from other ways, other frameworks or other design patterns. So for XAML and C# devs, really not a whole lot should change except for a few namespaces. You should be able to upgrade projects if you're doing stuff in Xamarin Forms today. But the goal is to open up the funnel so more people feel welcome, not just XAML and C# devs. There is a desire to bring in some Blazor devs into the fold if we can through mobile bindings. There is a desire to bring in some web folks, or especially folks who do Flutter or React Native through like an MVU design pattern, kind of bring them over as well. So you're not quite writing XAML, but under the covers, you are still using the same like renderers that Xamarin Forms uses. So essentially, it's just a matter of giving folks more choices in how they want to use Xamarin Forms.
So you're saying that Xamarin Forms is not necessarily going away, but this is the evolution. Should people, because the first bits of Maui are expected to drop with .NET 5 at TDevConf in mid-November, which is about a little more than 2 months away. Should you wait until? And the other thing is that Maui is not going to be LTS when it's released. So should people wait, or is it still okay to invest in Xamarin Forms now?
I think it's just totally fine to invest. In fact, just as of this week, there were some controversies. Like if you look at all the work that's going on in .NET, especially if you talk about Maui, like it's all open source, and some of it is still obviously behind shutters. But the PMs and the folks who work on it, they talk about this stuff openly, and people point out when things are getting a little scary. And folks were saying, is XAML going to be really a first-hand citizen in Maui? And they were quick to come back to say, no, it's all good what we're doing. So I think it's totally going to be fine. It would be ridiculous to take away what has been built over the last 5 years. So if you are doing Xamarin today, if you want to start up new things in Xamarin or Xamarin Forms, you should totally be fine. What you're going to see in Maui is more mature tooling, an easier way to upgrade. It really, if you just want to keep on doing XAML and C# like you do in Xamarin Forms, not a whole lot changes for you. So there should be easy tools to convert. You can do it by hand. You could also do some automated tools. But Maui does not hit, like you said, it doesn't come out officially for production until .NET 6, which is November of 2021.
Right.
And even that might not be LTS. So this is a while away. So keep on doing what you're doing with Xamarin Forms. You're going to be in perfectly good shape.
And one of the things that I am most excited for with Maui dropping is that you can, that from the .NET tool, from the .NET CLI, you'll be able to scaffold, and so you'll be able to use Visual Studio Code. And yes. I don't hate Visual Studio; it's a fantastic product, but like you said, it does come with a lot of baggage. And also the experience between Mac and Windows with Visual Studio is completely different. So do you have any thoughts? Do you have any thoughts on beginning to use Visual Studio Code for mobile development?
Yeah, no, this is a very welcome change. In fact, you can already start doing that. So this is completely experimental. But if you look at a GitHub project called Comet. So Comet is put together by a gentleman, and actually there may be more folks helping him out right now. His name is James Clancy. He is one of the engineers on the Xamarin Forms team. And what it gives you, that project, is just a snapshot of what things could look like in Maui. So this is essentially using the MVU pattern. It is using tooling which is not tied to Visual Studio. So all of the Xamarin Forms stuff that you do, it's still like MS Build type projects, which is why it's stuck to Visual Studio for Mac or Windows, and then it has the emulators and all of that stuff. It's not CLI first, while this is CLI first. So you should be able to scaffold the project out in CLI and then open it up in Visual Studio Code, and you essentially use an extension that knows, here's my iOS simulator, here's my Android, and then you can write your code and spin up or fire up your simulator right from there. So this is definitely a big change, and it kind of lowers the barrier to entry, because even with Visual Studio today, you get all of the Xamarin bits. It's a big install to kind of get started, and then you have to maintain it. And some of it doesn't go away because you do need the iOS and the Android builds to happen. Right. But the IDE being light and thin, and truly cross-platform and the same everywhere, I think that's a welcome change.
No, I agree. Now you've mentioned this model view update several times, and current Xamarin Forms developers and also UWP and these are familiar with model view model. Can you go into a little bit of what the compare and contrast MVVM and MVU a little bit?
Sure. In fact, it's funny. I was just having a conversation with Dan Siegel, who's a good friend of mine, and he's one of the folks who maintains Prism for WPF and Xamarin Forms. So like you said, like for XAML and C# devs, MVVM is a design pattern that has been around for the last 7-8 years. It's quite mature. Some of it is actually baked into Xamarin Forms, so you don't have to use a framework per se, because some of it brings in complexity that you may not be ready for, which is like Prism tries to do a fairly good job. But again, like a design pattern is like you cannot push a design pattern too much, because it's just something that the developers need to be comfortable in. If it appears like it's rushed or you're pushing it down our throat, it's not going to work. It's going to fail eventually. So we shall see. These are very early days. But I have almost no clue about Elm, the whole ecosystem, the programming languages and the architectures. But this MVU pattern has apparently been quite popular with Elm.
Right.
And they are trying to bring it over into .NET MAUI, and time will tell whether this is going to be something people do. So I think it's like one other option compared to like what MVVM and C# and XAML would be. So compared to MVVM, which is model, view, view model. So you have a model, which is primarily your data, right? And you have your business objects represented as models, and you hydrate or dehydrate the models based on whatever your app is doing. Maybe you fetch things from the cloud. So that's your business logic layer. That's your validation layer. That's your model. And then you have a little bridge. You like your views to be as thin as possible. So the view is essentially your XAML markup. And you would like the views to be not have a whole lot of knowledge about the models that they are serving up or part of the model that they're showing. And that bridge, the orchestrator in between, is the controller, the view model. So essentially the view model takes the data from the view or from the model and hands it off to the view, and vice versa. So if things change in the view, the object needs to be updated. So the view model takes it up and passes it back to the model, and you save it, whatever. And this thing has been popular, and this thing has been going on for a while, and it's great. MVU is a design pattern that's, again, it's sort of new to .NET developers. It's model view update. So in a way, it's simple, but it involves a few steps. And just like any other design pattern, it's open to a little bit of interpretation. So it was funny when they first talked about MVU with MAUI. In the blog post that Microsoft pushed out, they referred to a gentleman, Thomas Band, and his blog post on MVU. Like, here are the main things about MVU. And so they pointed to that blog post, and then they pointed to how they were doing things in MAUI. And this gentleman came up with another post right after that to say, yeah, what you're doing is not really MVU. But again, it's open to interpretation. As long as developers are happy, we are keeping things productive, I think it's fine. So model view update kind of cuts down on some of the fluff, if you may. So it's super simple. The model is not just data. The model is what runs your application. It's the state of your application, kind of what React devs would be used to. So the model is what realizes what the state of the application is. Whatever objects you have, the object models, are they evolving? Are they the same as that you got from your data stores? What is the state of the UI? So the model is the one place of truth that keeps track of the state of the application as it's running. The view is lightweight, and it essentially takes things from the model and just displays it straight up. There is nothing in between, right? Like a view model. And they say it's like a one-way data binding, but in a sense, it ends up being a two-way thing, because anytime anything happens on the view, the user does something to an object, the model needs to be updated, right? So you need to update the state, because maybe you chose a drop-down or something. the model needs to be going back up and updating itself to state, and the view automatically updates itself because one, that's where things happen. But then if like, let's just say, envision like a cascading list of like drop downs, like you select one drop down, like a car model, then the other, like the car manufacturer, you want to update the car models list, that updates, first update goes back to the model, which updates the state. And now you have data for the next drop down. So in a way, it is a cycle that updates itself. And MVU, strictly speaking, has to have a few basic elements as to when you call that update method. There are like two methods. I'm forgetting the other one. There's update and there's one more. But again, it's not strict. So what it ends up being for Maui, or at least the way they're envisioning things for Maui, is a visual tree that is described in mostly C#. And you can actually do this today, even without Maui. There, the XAML visual tree for Xamarin Forms. And it's funny, like when they first came up with Xamarin Forms, this was the way they envisioned it, that you will write C# to describe your visual tree. And then we kind of all went to XAML. But this is kind of going back to what it was. So you're going to describe the visual tree in C#, and in your visual tree, you're going to reference the model, which keeps the state. So whenever one part of the UI does something to the model, the state update needs to happen back in the model. And if anybody else is listening, they will know right away. And so it's a title loop. It does not have the update method like a purist will do, but it's functional. It works.
So so obviously you are very well versed in Xamarin and software development in general. But what do you do outside of Xamarin and software development? So it may or may not involve tech. I know that a lot of us, who are speakers or enthusiasts in the industry, a lot of what we do for fun is tech because we have the greatest jobs in the world because we get to do what we like for work. But what do you do outside of work? Yes.
No, I do disconnect. I do disconnect quite a bit. When it comes to like tech that maybe gives us fun and enjoyment, I used to be a gamer. I like saying like I used to be a gamer and then life happened. So things get busy, but I'm getting back into gaming a little bit with my kiddo. It's a sad story right now in our home because our Xbox is broken. And I'm trying to fix it, and I don't want to get a new one because the new one is coming out in like 2 months.
Yeah.
So I am. yeah. So I like gaming, but otherwise, I am into fast cars. I love outdoors. Something that is really quite embarrassing, and I'm happy to spill out the beans here on the internet. I am born and brought up in a big metropolitan city in India. So it's kind of like New York without the skyscrapers. Traffic is crazy. So I've never had a bike. Never. My parents never got me one. So I never learned how to bike, which is so embarrassing. And now with kiddo, like we want to get him going. We have gotten him like a trike and a scooter and now a full-on bike. So I had to face my demons. So I have like this summer, since we are all kind of at home and quarantined, I have gotten a mountain bike. Like if you look at all the stores, like Walmart's or the Dick's, like they're all out for the most part because like everyone's getting on that. So I went off and ordered a bike from China on Amazon, and it came in a huge box, and I like poured in hours trying to put it all together. And the core of it isn't hard, just the gears, the brakes, the derailleurs, it's complicated. So this summer I actually learned how to bike, so I can actually enjoy things a little bit more outdoors. I enjoy cooking, as you can tell from me. I'm a big foodie. I enjoy family time, and when I'm out in the community, I enjoy hanging out with people.
Awesome. Well, Sam, I want to get some closing thoughts from you. But first of all, I want to do a quick rundown on how you can participate in TDevConf and see Sam and all of the other great speakers that we are going to have. Tickets are available. They are free. This is a free conference. We wanted to, because haven't been a lot of conferences recently, and So we wanted to give everybody the chance to get in on this. So bit.ly/TDevConf 2020-tickets. The conference is October 3rd, 2020. That is 3 weeks from tomorrow. So if you have not put it on your calendar, now's a good time to do so. We published the schedule today. That is at bit.ly TDevConf 2020-schedule. Follow us on Twitter at TDevConf, and you'll get all of the updates. Also, coming up at noon Central Time, I normally put Central on there, but that is 12 p.m. Central Time. We'll have be interviewing Robert Bodigheimer. I believe that's how you pronounce the name, Robert. If I'm mispronouncing your name, I apologize. It's the first thing that I'll ask you before we start the stream. But however, we'll have Robert on, and we'll have another interesting discussion. Sam, leave us with some words of wisdom.
I'll try, but with Robert, ask him about Fiddler. He's a huge Fiddler fan.
That's what he's talking about.
Yeah, and Fiddler is our thing, but I mean it's also community driven. It's free, and we are redoing it, as you may have heard. So Fiddler used to be just for Windows. It used to be a MEF application, but now we rewrote it actually to do Fiddler everywhere, which runs on Windows, Mac, and Linux, and works seamlessly. Still not like fully feature parity, but we're getting close. So definitely exciting times. Okay, what else can I say for parting thoughts? I was actually just talking to Sarah this morning, who's a good friend of ours. Things can get a little overwhelming, especially if you're coming in new in the industry. So take your time, choose your passion. Choose what you're using at work, and then take the time to learn it well. I think for especially as we are starting out, for better or worse, I think our industry tends to reward specialists, right? You know something inside out, and you are considered a subject matter expert, right? And that's a great place to be. You have dug deep, and you know something really well. And that's great as long as that's paying dividends for you. If I had put all my eggs in one basket with Silverlight or Windows Phone, I would not be a very happy person, because I spent years and years on that tech, and then tech fails. And again, technologies and platforms come and go. So it's great to be invested and passionate in a certain tech, but keep your avenues open, because again, you never know how things are going to shake up. Let's not burn bridges with people over technologies. People is what we work with. So take it easy and pace yourself and learn as much as you can, read as much as you can. And especially in these times, I was tweeting the other day that things are hard. And if you are a parent, be kind to yourself, be kind to your spouse, or just overall kindness is, I think, what and empathy is what's called for. It's tough times for everybody. So just power through, try to find your happy spot, try to be productive, and that's it.
All right. Well, Sam, my guest this morning has been Mr. Sam Basu. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for everything that you do to make the community a better place, and thank you for helping make TDevConf awesome.
Yeah, and quick shout out. I know just how much work it is to put on a conference, virtual or physical. So thank you for taking the time to do this. Right.
Thank you very much, sir. All right, this will be posted on YouTube as soon as I have time to edit the video, but you can catch the Twitch VOD for the next 14 days. All right, thanks a lot, Sam. I'll see you later, my friend.
Thank you. Bye-bye.